I would like to see a hand of people that are new into the ministry. Can I see a hand of those people, or newer in the last year, let's say? Hello? Come on, you guys. I see some newer faces out there. Okay, I see. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. And we will have different teachers each week. We'll be learning together. Each person who teaches will touch your heart in a different way. So if you're not happy with one week, try another week. If you can't come one week, it's okay. You can come on a different week. So just understand you'll be touched in different ways with a different teaching each week.
Normally, I would not be teaching tonight because my goal is not to teach the Word, but to have many others teach the Word. This year we're studying Old Testament, and we had a teacher chosen for Leviticus, and she said she wanted to teach it. Well, then she called and she said she couldn't do it. So I said, well, that's a pretty tough book. And I will teach the first class with Jefferson Duke, who is Jewish, and who will help us with this book. Each year, this year is Old Testament, next year is New Testament, and we alternate every year, and this class will be for 10 weeks. It will include a trip to the synagogue, hopefully around the time of Purim, where we will see the festival and the holiday of Purim from the Jewish perspectives. I think this is ready.
Marty said it's ready, just turn it on.
There will be dinner every week, and I want to announce again that it's by donation. We've always charged us $3, but that really doesn't even cover the cost of food. So by donation is what you can afford, and it's for widows and orphans, and 100% of the money you put in goes to widows and orphans. We don't use it to buy the food. Is there a sign-up list for who's going to bring food next week?
I have it right here.
Good. There will be a list going around if you want to bring food next week or the week after or whenever. This would be helpful. How many thought dinner was really good tonight? Boy, a ham. I mean, this was pretty outstanding.
Betty, there's also places to sign up to help set up.
Right, and clean up, right.
Because we need lots of help there.
Okay. This book is called The Tabernacle, and that's where I'm going to start tonight. Now, to give you a little background, the Old Testament is not called the Old Testament by the Jewish people. It's called the Hebrew Scriptures. So it is correct to say the Hebrew Scriptures. We say it's the Old Testament, meaning it's the Old Testimony, it's the Old Covenant, and then there's the New Covenant. The Old Covenant was with a nation, and the New Covenant is with individuals. And that's how you can distinguish the two, because the new works on, the nation rejected their God. Jesus came, the nation rejected their God. So it is about an individual transforming, and there is no nation of Christians, but it's to be for any nation. The first 5 books of the Hebrew Scriptures, or the Old Testament, are called the Torah, T-O-R-A-H. And the Torah is the most significant part of the Bible for the Jewish people. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And every year they read it in its entirety. Each day there is the Torah reading, and then there's a Haftorah, which is a prophecy, a prophetic like Isaiah or something. And each day they do a reading. And at the end of the year, they finish reading it. And they build a booth or a hut. And they sit in the hut. And they finish reading the Torah as a family, because it's read as a family. And they start the new year and start all over again. So most Jewish people really know this inside and out. This is a book about the tabernacle, and if you studied Exodus, an awful lot of the book of Exodus, a lot of the book of Exodus is devoted to the building of the tabernacle. This was the place where the wilderness they built, they developed the tabernacle. It wasn't in a permanent site until it came into the Holy Land, and the first permanent site of the tabernacle in the Holy Land was at Shiloh, S-H-I-L-O. After it was captured by the Philistines and Shiloh's area was destroyed, eventually the Jewish people built a temple in Jerusalem. During the time of Jesus, there were 3,200 gods in the ancient world. And every culture had multiple gods. The Jews were peculiar because they only had one. And they were peculiar because they had only one temple, and the temple had to be located in Jerusalem, or it could not be rebuilt. We know, for example, that the Mormons can build temples many areas, but the Jews cannot build a temple anywhere except in Jerusalem. Thus, when Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple was destroyed. They developed, when they were in Iraq, in the Babylonian exile, they developed the synagogue system. And that's how synagogues came about. And because synagogues came about and the development of the individual, that's how churches came about. So it all fits together. Now, one of the things that is peculiar to Judaism is that everything is prescribed. So if you look through this book, every little thing that's built is prescribed as to how it's built, what size it's going to be, what's going to be in it, how it's going to be used, and it's about perfection. And one of the problems in Jewish religion is perfectionism. They have 613 laws they have to obey. We have trouble remembering the few traffic laws we have to obey. No cell phones, remember? While you're driving. But this is Judaism, the Bible. God decided to make things very, very clear. This is what I want. This is what I consider to be worthy of a holy place. And so I'll pass this around tonight, and people can look through it if they want to. But it's like this preciseness, this perfect way of doing things. Now, let's suppose that one day you thought, well, I'm not quite perfect. That's a great discovery some people have a terrible time making. And then what are you going to do if you're not quite perfect? You're going to have to figure out something to do to solve the problem because you're supposed to be perfect. If you studied the New Testament, you say Jesus says you must be perfect even as your Father in heaven is perfect. He doesn't mean the kind of perfection in the Old Testament. He means a wholeness of love. It's introduced by love. It's talked about. Love is how you use your love, what you do with your love. That's the only thing that you're answerable for in the New Testament. If you use your love unselfishly, if you don't have favorites, if you treat everyone as you want to be treated, then you are fulfilling all 613 laws. And as we know, churches can be in many different sizes and shapes. They can be in homes. They can be all over. And we generally don't have temples except perhaps in Mormonism and a few other places, but we generally just have what would have been a synagogue system became a church system.